Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video doing the GWV Sunday Round-Up. So we're going to have a real mix of different things. As always, on a Sunday, we're going to be looking at the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, we'll add the QBO and the SOI into the mix as well, and solar activity too, and the weather for next week to 10 days as well. So loads to cram in, better get on with it right away. We're going to start off having a look at what happened in July. We've got the climate averages updated for July at UK Met Office. No update from the CET, however. That still is waiting to be updated. Get July's final Central England temperature number in. But we have got the UK-wide temperatures. These don't go as far back as the CET, but they do cover the whole of the UK. So this is how mean maximum temperatures look set against 61 to 1990 in July. You see, you had a bit of a north-south split, really. Much of England and Wales coming out with a slightly warmer than average month, an anomaly of around 1 degree above average. Northern Ireland as well. Scotland, though, was closer to average. That's set against the old and cold average. If we set against a more modern average of 81 to 2010, actually you can see the anomaly for England and Wales was just average, nothing particularly exciting doing there. But for Scotland, actually we came out with a colder than average July. So a north-south split, whichever average you use, is just but 61 to 1990 is average in the north and above average in the south, whereas 81 to 2010, because it's a warmer average, a warmer temperature series, that comes out just average for England and Wales, and actually colder than average for parts of Scotland. Now, precipitation-wise, also a very interesting month. This again set against 61 to 1990. And you can see that for Scotland, the precipitation comes out around average, really. One area through central Scotland was a bit drier than average, but generally average rainfall for Scotland. But for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, it comes out as a significantly wetter than average July as well. And particularly so, interestingly and unusually, down in the south, where it turned out to be a very wet month with 200% of rainfall. If we have a look at 81 to 2010, very same, similar story, no difference really. So Scotland, again, coming out with the driest anomaly, average rainfall there. England, Wales and Northern Ireland coming out wetter than average. So overall, it's not been a great July, you have to say, after what was a pretty decent, pretty decent June. And start to July, things deteriorated through the course of July. And now as we're heading into August, we are in a very unsettled weather pattern, of course, and it is looking like increasingly as though this is going to be a front-loaded summer. So we get all the summer weather, the warm weather, is in the early front part of the summer, and then as we progress through the summer, deterioration. The last time we had one of those front-loaded summers was in 2010, which preceded, of course, that December to remember, the severe cold December of 2010. However, I don't think that front-loaded summers are particularly a particular signal to have a colder than average winter. We had another famous front-loaded summer in 1992, where we had lots of very warm weather through May and June. 1992, then through July there was a deterioration, and then August of 1992 was a very poor month, and that was followed by a mild winter in 92-93. So just because the last front-loaded summer was 2010, that's the year that always picks up a cold lover's ears. Just because the last front-loaded summer was 2010 does not mean that the coming winter is going to follow that of 2010, if only it was that simple. Right, we'll go on and have a look at solar activity. So this is how things are looking on the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net. We can see that we have got one biggish sunspot just there, but overall not much happening on the solar disk, and I can tell you that solar activity is officially at very low levels today at Solar Ham. This is the GWV Summer Season Daily Solar Activity Tracker, just updated this morning from our friend James Ackland, sent through to me. Big thank you, James, for keeping this updated for us as always. So the trends are moving downwards. This is where we are with solar activity, sunspot activity right now. We are at a very minimal level of sunspots. We're alternating between having just spotless days, so no sunspots, and just having a very minimal level of sunspots. So we are moving down with the trend lines. The thick green and thick red lines are moving downwards, although perhaps in the last day or so they have kind of flattened off a little bit, but I think the general trend at the moment is downwards. The pink line, which is indicating solar flux, however, that is actually ticking up just a little bit from quite a big drop downwards. That's kind of like the noise that you tend to get from the sun, if you like. Generally, the trends are moving downwards, and we're heading down inevitably into solar minimum, which we will reach in around a year to 18 months' time. So, yeah, interested in all of this solar stuff that we'll be doing. Solar Sunday will be the final Solar Sunday of the year next week, a week today. So it'll be a video that just looks at solar activity and solar activity alone. So if you're interested in all of that kind of thing, what's happening on the sun, then next Sunday could be a very interesting day. Having a look at the oceans next. So this is the latest from NOAA in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Dealing with the Pacific first of all. So the ENSO region continues to just be around ENSO neutral. There's no sign of a warm event. Certainly that's dead in the water. El Nino, I think, we can write it off for this year. There's no sign of a particularly of a cold event, a La Nina, coming along either. We are just remaining at ENSO neutral. Still have those cold sea surface temperature anomalies off the coast of Chile. That can sometimes be a precursor to a La Nina event, cold event, in a few months' time. But I think we need to see those sea surface temperature anomalies, those cold temperature anomalies, sort of deepening and expanding before we can say that we're heading in that direction. Overall, it looks like we're staying around ENSO neutral for the time being. In the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, generally a little bit warmer now. It's warmed up in this northeastern quadrant of the Pacific Ocean, or Pacific Ocean, and generally the northern part of the Pacific Ocean is looking a little bit warmer now. In the Atlantic, no real changes really. In the tropics, remains quite warm. Through the central and northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, the sea surface temperature anomalies are looking relatively cool. We still have that contrast in temperature anomalies between this area here to the west of the UK and going up towards Greenland, and then this area over here to the north of Scotland between Greenland and Scandinavia. Not sure what the impacts of those anomalies are. The difference between the colder than average anomalies and the warmer than average anomalies. It's quite unusual to see that in that kind of form. It's a very extreme anomaly, really, in terms of that warm anomaly to the far north of the UK between Greenland and Iceland. And that contrast might help to fuel cyclogenesis as we go through into the autumn. It might help to fuel low pressure. I have to have a look. I haven't had time to have a look at that recently in terms of other years, but I had a similar pattern. But it is quite unusual to see that, so I'll have to have a look and see whether there could be an impact from that. I do know that the last time we had a very wet autumn was in 2000, and there wasn't an anomaly like that in 2000. That was quite different in terms of the Atlantic setup then. But I will have a look at autumns that had a similar sea surface temperature anomaly to that and see if there could be any impacts. Southern Oscillation Index next. So this is an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the southern Pacific Ocean. When the SOI is in a negative phase, it tells you that the atmosphere in the southern Pacific is reflecting El Nino. When the SOI is positive, it tells you that the atmosphere in the southern ocean is reflecting La Nina. You had some very unusual SOI numbers this year, and this is from the Bureau of Meteorology, by the way, which is the official meteorological agency in Australia. This goes right way back to 1876, so you can see all the El Nino and La Nina events all the way back into the Victorian era. Very interesting and useful website. So, we have a look at 2017, we won't go back to all those years. 2017 starts off with a SOI number of 1.3. And then in February, we went down to minus 2.2. And at that point, it looked like it was going to go into El Nino. And that deepened, actually, in April. We went down to minus 6.3. That's reflective of a developing El Nino pattern. And around that time, there was a lot of talk in the papers that we might have a Super Nino again, similar to what happened in 2015, 2016. But look what happened in May. Instead of deepening those negative numbers, in May we actually go to plus 0.5, so around ENSO neutral. Then June, real crash in the SOI, goes down to minus 10.4. That's very reflective of a developing El Nino. But July's number comes out at plus 8.1. That is swinging back towards La Nina, and that's effectively what's killed off any prospect of going into an El Nino event. I think we're too late now to go into an El Nino, and it looks like we're going to stay around ENSO neutral, though if we was to continue to increase positivity of the SOI through August, September, October, November and December, if we was to get more positive numbers coming along, then it's not out of the question that we might go into a La Nina, into a cold event. But that looks unlikely at the moment. It looks as though we're just going to hover around ENSO neutral for the time being. But quite unusual what's happened there. It did look earlier in the year with those SOI numbers that we was really going to go into an El Nino event. But certainly July's number, 8.1, that really does kill off any prospect of an El Nino anytime soon. The latest in terms of the preliminary SOI numbers coming out at for August, we'll deal with 1st of August to the 5th, coming out at plus 5, plus 1, plus 0.67, plus 5, and plus 2. So, again, we are not going into an El Nino, but those numbers are actually quite close to ENSO neutral in a lot of ways. I think that's where we're going to stay for the next few months, ENSO neutral. Our next movement, either to El Nino or La Nina, will probably be next year. Now, I don't see anything happening in the coming few weeks and months. QBO next, quasi-biennial oscillation. So we're moving down into the Easterly QBO. We're doing so very quickly. So this is from the University of Berlin website. The Easterly QBOs are indicated by these white areas just here. The QBO is an index. Again, all these indexes are just reflecting the state of the atmospheric setup. None of these indexes are driving the weather. They just tell you what the atmospheric setup is doing. So the easterly QBO is telling you that the zonal westerlies are in a weakened state. And in winter, an easterly QBO tends to coincide with an increased risk of a colder winter. It's not that simple, because there are many easterly QBO years that are also mild winters. So it's not as simple as saying an easterly QBO equals a cold winter. But it's one of the things that can increase the chance of having a cold winter in the UK and in Europe. So we are moving down into an easterly QBO. You can see that by this white area just here. The westerly QBO, which has been going on for a very long time, actually have to come over here for the start of a westerly QBO in 2015, continuing all the way through 2016, which it shouldn't have done. Won't go into that again today, but the atmosphere did something totally unique and one-off in 2016 in terms of the continuation of the westerly QBO and continuing with that westerly QBO into 2017 as well. But now the easterly QBO is on its way. I think we can definitively say that we are rapidly moving into the easterly QBO, and by the winter 2017-18 we will have an easterly QBO winter. This is the latest QBO number from NOAA, so we can see that in 2017 we start off with the westerly QBO, so we've got a positive number plus 14.92. That continues into February plus 14.78. And into March plus 14.35. All of those numbers are indicative of a westerly QBO, a continuation of a westerly QBO, and plus 13.88 in April as well. That's indicative of a westerly QBO. But in May, we get a decline. We go down to plus 8.01, and that's decline strengthened in June. We went negative for the first time since 2015. We go down to minus 3.18. The latest number in terms of the QBO for July goes down to minus 10.48. That tells you that we are rapidly, and it is a very rapid descent actually, and perhaps unusually so, it is a very rapid descent down into the easterly QBO. And I would suspect that these subsequent numbers, which haven't been filled in yet of course, but these subsequent numbers through the remaining months of the year, those numbers will turn increasingly negative. So by the time we get to here, by the time we get through to the end of the year, into the winter, we will probably be having quite a strong easterly QBO. It could be that the atmosphere has been storing up this easterly QBO because of the failure of the easterly QBO 2016. It's probably been storing it up, and we may have a very strong easterly QBO as we get through to the end of 2017 and into 2018, which will mean that the zona westerlies are in a weakened state. It will increase the chance that this coming winter might be a cold and average winter, but it's not as simple as that, unfortunately. So we will wait and see how that plays out over the coming few months, of course. It'll be one of the things we concentrate on a lot when we do the winter updates. You'll be hearing a lot more about the easterly QBO in the coming months. So let's have a look at the Arctic Oscillation next. This is an index, as I say, with all these indexes, they're just reflecting the state of the atmosphere. This one is looking at the state of the atmosphere in the Arctic, in the North Pole. The black line tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation, go back into the spring with that. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. We're around neutral, slightly on the positive side with the Arctic Oscillation at the moment. It looks like we're going to go negative, actually, for a few days in the coming week, and then drifting back up towards neutral, slightly on the positive side again as we head towards the middle part of August. So nothing really dramatic going on with the Arctic Oscillation at this stage, unlike the North Atlantic Oscillation, because that's really very negative at the moment. So again, same idea with this. A black line tells us where we've been with the NAO, red lines at the end where the GFS ensemble is forecasting the NAO to go. And we can go back into the spring when we was generally positive, although we did go negative with the NAO through the course of May. Early part of the summer through June, we was generally positive with the NAO then, and that strengthened into July as well. But since the middle of July, we've been trending downwards with the NAO. We are now quite significantly negative, you have to say, and the GFS ensembles are forecasting us to stay so. At the end, we do get a drift back up towards neutral, perhaps, but overall, that looks like quite a prolonged spell of negativity of the NAO. And this has coincided with the change in the summer, because through the early part of the summer, when we had this positivity of the NAO, we had a strengthened Azores high, and that's what gave us a hot start to the summer. A lot of dry weather through June and early July down in the south. Since the NAO has gone negative, that has coincided with a much more unsettled, and you could actually say a little bit autumnal weather, summer weather pattern. So a definite switch there from the middle of July, coinciding with a change in the weather through the course of this summer. Right, GFS ensembles looking like this. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. We are cooler than average at the moment. We're going to be staying so for the remainder of the week. We get through to the middle part of July. Now, this period around the middle of August was being signalled to possibly coincide with an increase in temperature and a strengthening of the Azores high again. But now, actually, the GFS ensembles are kind of toning that down quite a lot. We're just staying around average with those upper air temperatures, really. So that might be a bit disappointing for anybody that was wanting a return of summer through the middle part of the month. It looks like that's being downgraded quite a bit from the GFS ensembles. Late on, into the second half of August, we do see quite a bit of scatter. There are several really quite hot members, but equally there's several quite cool members as well. So I think the second half of August is still up for grabs, if you like. But that middle part of August, which a few days ago was signalled to be warmer and drier, particularly for the south, with the Azores high coming back into play, that is kind of being moderated quite a lot at the moment. So it could well be that the Azores high never really gets back in, such as it was through the early part of the summer this month. Precipitation-wise, a fair amount of dry weather for the next couple of days, but at middle part of the week, fair amount of rain coming up, particularly, I think, for the south and the east through Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And then just showery, really, after that. Into the second half of August, this period just here, possibly a little bit drier then, but that's a very long way off, of course. So the temperature anomaly for the next month, this takes us from the 6th through to the 14th of August. That's coming out a bit cooler than average. Not really surprised given what we just saw with the ensembles. Cooler than average for the UK, Ireland and much of France as well. So things will be cooling down in France and also in Germany too. But over in the east and southeast of Europe, the heat remains there, although probably not quite at the extreme level that we've had over the past few days. So things should start moderating, I think, across the east and southeastern parts of Europe in the coming week. Precipitation anomalies from the 6th through to 14th of August. Coming out average to a little bit wetter than average, particularly so in the eastern part of the country. It remains quite disappointing, I think, in terms of temperature and precipitation up to the middle part of August. So finally, just having a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. This is the GFS for Wednesday, when we've got low pressure in the North Sea and we bring down a cool north-northeasterly wind. There'll be showers or longer spells of rain coming in with that, particularly so for the east. We've got to firm up on the detail. Now, eventually that low pressure does start to drift off towards Denmark on Thursday. We begin to get a bit of an extension from the Azores high. So that looks a bit better for the south through to the end of next week. Reasonable amount of dry weather for southern parts of the country, although still quite wet and windy at times in the north and the west. And through into next weekend, well, the Azores high tries to throw its ridge over the country, but doesn't really come off, and by Sunday actually it's starting to pull back in the Atlantic again and allow another trough to move down from the north and west. That could bring more widespread rainfall later into the weekend. Then we go through to Monday the 14th of August, where low pressure is just sitting close to the country as a trough within the 500 millibar flow, so expect showers, longer spells of rain with that. And then we head up towards day 10, and again we tried to get another extension from the Azores high, but the Atlantic is still quite buoyant really here, so again that doesn't really come off, and by just beyond day 10 takes us to Thursday 17th of August. We're back into a westerly again and probably bringing another weather system across the country with outbreaks of rain. So for the south there will be some drier and warmer days, but nothing sustained before the middle part of August, certainly. And for the north, it remains very, very changeable. Scotland never even got that hotter, drier start to the summer. Been a dismal summer for Scotland, and all that's happened is that those dismal conditions have progressed south since around the middle part of July. East MDF finally, so low pressure is in the North Sea on Wednesday, bringing quite a bit of rain potentially to the east and the south. That low pressure clears away on Thursday. By Friday, we are getting a little bit of an extension from the Azores high into the south, so there should be some drier, warmer conditions there, although still unsettled in the north and the west. The weekend looks rather unsettled, especially so for the north, but even in the south, I think we will be at risk of some showers at the very least. By Sunday next week, and then beyond that into middle part of August, so it's staying unsettled really. That takes us up to day 10, which is Wednesday 16th of August, when it looks as though this area of low pressure here in the Atlantic is getting ready to roll in and bring us another spell of that quite unsettled conditions. So nothing sustained in terms of settled weather before the middle of August. And a couple of days ago, it did look as though middle of August might see a change to something warmer and drier and more sustained in terms of warmer, drier weather. Now, there will be some warmer and drier days down in the south as the Azores high tries to throw up its ridge. But those ridges don't look as though they're going to be sustained. So very quickly, maybe will be flattened off as the next low pressure rolls through. And this might be how things are going to go through the rest of August. It's difficult to say. There's a lot of scatter within the GFS ensembles for the second half of August. So it's not impossible that we might get a sustained run of warmer and drier conditions before the end of the month. But certainly up to the middle part of the month, it is remaining quite changeable. Right, been a bit of an extended Sunday roundup today, but I hope you found it interesting and informative. I say next week it's Solar Sunday, so we'll have a video just looking purely at solar activity. It'll be the last one this year, because after that we will combine all the solar stuff with the winter updates, which begin just 4 weeks now at the start of September. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.